I have the incredible honor of hosting the wonderful speakers who flew on their own dime to Syria to help us deliver what was an incredible conference. We're going to start off with some introductions. I'll go quickly. I know that I have the pleasure of knowing at least half of you in this room. My name is Miyassar Taidin. I was lucky enough to be able to work with 24 incredible colleagues to put on both the conference in Syria and now here. They say you're only as good as the team you lead, and the team is incredible. So how about we give them a big round of applause? And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mahmoud. Mahmoud, if you could tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hello, my name is Mahmoud al-Nahlawi. I was born in Damascus, Syria. I went to Jawdat al-Hashmi High School. I moved to the state for college. I went to the University of Michigan, studied computer science. Currently, I'm a software engineer at Google. I lead the serving infrastructure teams for generative AI. Before that, I worked on Google Search for a long time. Prior to Google, I worked at big companies like Apple and Yahoo, and a few small companies, startups. Some of them made it, some of them did not.
Thank you. My name is Abdel Hamid Al-Aqil. I go here by Abdul Akal. Born and raised in Syria. رحت على المحسنية قريب عليكم. Moved to the US 25 years ago. Went to Ohio State University. Started a fintech company based out of Columbus called Tcetra. We do payment solutions to the wireless companies. So if you go to a wireless store to buy a service, buy a phone, transfer your service, we're the systems behind the counter that enable that. And happy to be here.
Okay, I think this is working. اسمي مديان الخبصة, also born in Syria. I did actually my undergrad in Damascus University and came to the US after that. I did PhD at Penn State, so we shouldn't sit next to each other. After that, I'm an AI researcher by training. I worked at a lot of companies afterwards, like Microsoft Research and Meta and Apple. It was the first time I go back to Syria after finishing my undergrad 17 years ago. So it was amazing to see, like, okay, how the country was when I was there, and going back for these 3 days to see the big transformation.
مرحبا, أنا هاني أتاسي. I did study in Aleppo University. I did not graduate from there, however. I did move to the US in 2000. I graduated from Wisconsin. Then I studied also in University of Washington. Worked for Microsoft for a long time. After that, right now I'm working in Meta as a software engineer, in particular in communications. So if you used messenger calling, that would be using code I wrote. So that's it.
Fantastic, thank you. Gentlemen, I want to start off with, what were your impressions of Syria going back after having left all those years ago? I don't have the benefit of a comparison because I was born and raised here and I've lived my whole life here. So the last time I was in Syria was 15 years ago, but that was for 3 days. So what were some of your impressions of what it was like when you left it and how you found it? Do you want to start, Mahmoud?
Sure. Last time I visited before this last trip was 2011, prior to the start of the revolution. Infrastructure was better. It's hard to not notice the widespread destruction and humanitarian crisis when you visit, but in general, I felt a big difference in people, right? So before, there's always this tension between people, right? You feel it in Syria. There's like people had their guard up, right? Now I felt like people were a lot more open, a lot more relaxed, maybe exhausted, and they have a lot more agency in the country, right? Like one of the things, like you go to the airport and the airport is still the same airport, right? But it's clean, right? You talk to the immigration officer, they're smiling. They tell you welcome home, right? So that was a big change, right? And then like talking to people was just amazing, right? They open up, they share their stories, they share their resilience, they share their, it was really rewarding experience.
For me, I think I left 25 years ago, but I was going up until 2011. But when I left in 1999, there were no private universities. So the only way for you to be in tech, where you would go to فرع المعلوماتية at the time was relatively new. So the tech industry, relatively speaking, was non-existent when I left. So going to the SYNC conference and seeing like just a flood of people wanting to be part of that conference was just shocking to me how big this community is. I learned that this is a very popular field in every private school, and just so many people are in there. And you have to understand, for you to be in tech, like here, if you have a passion for tech, you're going to go to school, you're going to be in tech. In Syria, you have to actually have really high score in high school to be in tech. So you have to be really good in math, you have to be really good in physics, you have to be really good in a lot of different subjects for you to be to be able to go to al-Malumati, to be in tech and software engineering. So by default, when you see a software developer, it's not just somebody who has the passion for tech, they're actually really smart, really good in math. So I'm not an AI, but I think they're kind of AI ready in a lot of ways because of what they had to score to qualify to be in. So that was pretty shocking to me. And just the level of energy, the positivity. I mean, these guys are young, but they're really motivated. The entrepreneurial spirit in each and every one of them, the ones that we engaged with, was amazing. So, I mean, I'm very hopeful for what tech would look like in Syria.
Just big +1 to that, like the energy and how excited people are is like, you could feel it in the room. Like, this was amazing to see that. Like, after years of destruction and war, people are now like really excited and they really want to do something. What really stood out to me, coming back after 17 years, in the small bubble that we stayed in near the conference and surrounding areas, it really felt like the city has been in a time capsule. Like, nothing has changed, except it's like decayed so much. There's so much work that needs to happen on the infrastructure. One of the things we did, like, we took a tour bus that took us from Saht Umayyin to Bab Toum at night. And I felt really sad because this is the first time we're driving through Damascus and it's so dark. Like, you could see the stars in the sky. And this is funny because, like, my father-in-law was telling me like how he had his honeymoon back in the 70s in Damascus, and like from far away they see how shiny the city is. And now it's completely transformed. But the exciting thing is, like, the people are really hungry and they really want to do something. And you could see that they're excited. There's this big burden on top of their shoulder that was moved away, and they really want to build a city. But the journey is really going to be a long journey, and we're going to need everyone in the room to do that.
I do also share Median perspective. I maybe want to add a non-tech angle to this. If you visit Syria for vacation, you're probably going to be disappointed. No electricity. Although the food was good, especially after Jihad Yaqub recommendation, Akhou Iyad, that was really good. But yeah, the city is decayed. But if you're going there for an open eye, for visiting families, for knowing that the place has been gone from the regime and deliberated, then you'll be really surprised. The people are different, the places are clean, and yeah, that's from a non-tech perspective. From tech perspective, yeah, it's a time capsule. Everything is the same. Universities is even decades. Yesterday, somebody talked about no computers. Yeah, that's true. Some of them were stolen, actually, from the campus. So there's a lot to be done here for fact.
Fantastic. Thank you for your observations. One of the things that all of our esteemed colleagues were talking about was this energy. You could feel it. It shifted. People were open and talking, and even though there's so much work to be done, they were honestly really, really excited for the opportunities ahead. Where's Iyad? Iyad? He's outside? It's okay, it's okay.
He's right here, he's right here.
Okay, Iyad, I'm about to hijack and steal one of your lines, and so I'm gonna pretend this is the first time it's ever been used and no one's ever done it, like it's my idea. Gentlemen, Iyad has this thing that he does where he says, give us one ya salam and one ya ret. So one thing that went really, really well, or you observed that was great, and another that you're hopeful, but we're still not there. So why don't we go in reverse order this time? Hani, why don't you start?
Well, Ya Salam is, the conference was amazing. Thank you. And the people came from really everywhere in Syria. From Aleppo, from villages, from far away. I'm pretty sure these people actually most likely paid more than their salary income just to come and participate. You definitely see the energy in the people. And that really was the big moment for me. Just the sacrifices these people made just to come and be part of this. Yaret is I did not have enough time. I was there for 2 days, and that's it. I only had a chance to talk with the people inside the conference, but I did not have a chance to go outside and talk with companies. There are definitely software companies over there in Syria, for sure. Maybe next time I need to visit more and see, just inspect more the space over there outside the conference.
I mean, of course, Ya Salam is the people there. They're just like unbelievable. Like after this long revolution, like you meet some of amazing Hungary students from my school, Kulliyat Ma'lumatiyya. They're like amazing people. You meet some of these people who actually were some of the industry leaders back in the day before they were forced to go to Dubai and others, and they're coming back. They really want to do something. So the people and the energy, absolutely, Ya Salam. Yaret, I just wish the infrastructure situation was not as bad as it is. And again, I didn't leave the bubble of Damascus. I was told, like, if you go north of Homs, there's not even like electric wires, like the towers are gone. The level of stealing, ta'fish, اللي happened everywhere is just hard to imagine.
So, yeah, Salam is definitely the energy. So I'll not repeat that, but I'll say on the infrastructure point, I agree that the infrastructure is really horrible when it comes to electricity and internet. But I would say that those are not problems that are very difficult to solve. I talked to so many of the companies that are there, and I asked them, how are you dealing with it? They're like, this is the least of our concern. That's the easiest thing that we deal with. I said, how come? It's like, for any office, $1,500 a month is what you have to pay to compensate for no electricity and no good internet. They said for electricity, with the generators, because again, if you're in tech, you have laptops and computers. You're not, like this is not like an industrial building where it needs really a lot of electricity. So if you have an office of 15 people, you need $1,500, so it's about $100 per person. To get internet, you can get Starlink, and you can get batteries, LEDs, and generators. So it's really not expensive to overcome this infrastructure problem. I'd say finding a physical place is expensive. So when you talk to people that started like a small office or did something, they'll say, yeah, like I would always start about, hey, how are we dealing with electricity and internet? Those are not issues for them. It's finding a place. A lot of those businesses worked underground during the regime time, because a lot of them, if they did work to the Gulf or Turkey, they were not necessarily like registered as a company, so they had to find a place where they worked. They kept 15 people in one place. 6 months later, they moved them somewhere else. Then they moved them somewhere else. They work from home. So a physical place is expensive. They weren't registered per se because, I mean, yeah, it's just a lengthy process, and it was a lot of issues with it. So I'd say not an issue. It's not an issue.
For me, Salam was definitely the conference, right? I've attended many conferences, but this one felt different. It didn't feel like a conference. I was telling people, it felt like a, family and friends getting together to build a better Syria, right? That was very unique. It was outstanding. Yarit, I feel like similar to Hani and Midian, there's a lot of momentum right now in Syria, right? You feel it, you feel the energy, you feel people's hunger. There's a lot of things to be done. I really wish I had spent more time there. I think it would have been time very well spent. Yeah.
My ya salam would be everyone who flew in, not only our speakers, and we had about 75 speakers who flew in, but we had over 100 people from around the world get on a plane and come. The amazing thing is we were building the conference the entire time as we were traveling, so we didn't even give them a full outline of what would happen. They did all of this in blind faith, and this is why it's so important to have an incredible network, and I thank you all for doing it, and I thank the Muhammad Kaswanis, where is Muhammad, who also dropped everything from Dubai to Syria, and now from Dubai to San Francisco. So people who did, we're so grateful. Now, one of the things we have insisted on since the inception of SYNC is the conference is just the portal. It's the door we walk through because it's easy. People can come around a conference while we build out the organization. Looking forward to the next 10 months, 2025, what will we be celebrating on December 31st or December 8th? Having gone through this year, what would you like to see happen through SYNC and through some of the initiatives of the incredible people we have in the audience?
I think I'm very hopeful about the future. There's a UN report that predicts, optimistic scenario predicts 15% GDP growth in Syria between 2024 and 2030. They have conditions, infrastructure and stability and all this other stuff. But specifically for tech, I think there's a lot of room where we can add value. One is we had a meeting with university professors and deans, 30, 40 of them. I think there's a lack of qualified candidates in Syria in tech. You will meet outstanding people, right? They're truly outstanding, but they are outstanding, right? I think we can help shift the skill curve up in Syria. There's also lack of connection between academia and industry, There are also, always anecdotal cases, but there is no systematic way where you have that feedback loop. I think we can collaborate and share our experience with them. Related to that, I feel like, most companies in Syria, somebody shared a statistic with me, 95% of tech companies in Syria are 15 or less people. So pretty small. There is no depth on average in technology in Syria, in general. There's, integration type of stuff. And, so I think we can help add depth to the technology there. And lastly, we talked about, Silicon Valley mindset. You'll find a lot of really inspiring people, a lot of resilience, a lot of resourcefulness, which I think is the essence of Silicon Valley mindset, but it's not systematic, right? There is no well-lit path for people that want to do that, right? So having an ecosystem with structure and clear rules and rights and all that stuff, I think is something that, looking forward to having in Syria.
I feel very optimistic about what the tech industry is going to look like in Syria. Like I said, it was an industry that people had to operate on underground to an industry that the new leadership of Syria is actively trying to support. And I really mean actively trying to support, and I'll tell you why. When you think about the Syrian economy 15, 20 years ago, the Syrian economy had really kind of three legs. It had the oil and gas, it had the agriculture, and it had the industrial. Like if you talked 15, 20 years ago, like what does the tech industry represent from the Syrian economy? It's negligible. You could pick anything else and it'd be more meaningful. When we first went in December to visit, and I think a few people in the room were part of that first visit, and we had a meeting with the leadership, the thing that they asked for specifically was tech. Because if you think about the three things that the Syrian economy historically was relied on, oil and gas, it's going to take a while until we get it fixed. And that while could be anywhere between 12 months to 2 years, 3 years, depending how sanctions go and how the geopolitical situation plays out. If you think about agriculture, we're looking at 12 months until you have a season, and we're going to have to find the farmers, the people that come back. There's lots of things in agriculture. You need to make sure that you have the water, you have the generators. There's a lot of things that need to happen to line up to get agriculture. When you think of the industry, the industrial, all the factories that existed in Damascus and Aleppo, those need to be rebuilt. You need machinery, you need good electricity, you need a lot of things to make them happen. So if you're thinking industrial, we're looking at 3 to 4 years until it really starts to pay off. And it's going to require a lot of investments. You're going to have to reestablish the pipeline. If you're a factory in Aleppo, you're going to have to figure out all your vendors. You need to get your raw material coming. You need to get transportation. There's the big cycle. So to get the industrial segment of the economy going, we're talking about 2 to 3 years. And you need to bring a lot of those factories from Turkey, from Egypt. Again, back to the agriculture, you're looking at 1 or 2 years. Tech is something we can get started in a few months. I mean, with the work that SYNC is doing, we already had people in Damascus that stood up and say, hey, I operate in Dubai. I commit to hiring 50 people. Somebody else walked in and was like, we already have 150. We commit to getting, I don't know what it was, like another 100 people hired. So, and a tech job in Damascus is about $1,200, $1,500, $2,000. So not only it can happen very quickly, it's a high-paying job. If you're thinking what a job we can create in agriculture, we're probably looking at $40 a month, $50 a month. So one tech job is, do the math of how many jobs in agriculture. Same thing in oil and gas. Oil and gas is probably the highest paying out of the three. But if you think of industrial, you think of agriculture. So again, the leadership recognizes that for them to make the most impact, it's going to have to be in tech. And it came up in our first meeting with the leadership, and Iyad was the one that actually was asked the question. He said, I'm Silicon Valley this, and Shara himself said, talk to me about that. What can we do to actually get this started? So this is a very meaningful thing. This is not something like, hey, we'll support it. This is something that I think the leadership recognizes that it's important, it's meaningful. I think if we create 25,000 jobs in 5 years, this is the equivalent of few million jobs in the rest of those industries for what it means. Imagine if you're making $1,500 in Damascus today. I mean, what are you bringing to your family? So again, I mean, this is how consequential what this conference is, what you guys are doing. This is extremely consequential to the economy. I don't want to take away from people that are doing agriculture or anything else. We still have to do it. But I think this is so consequential to the economy that if we can figure this out, I mean, it's very, very meaningful.
I think I'm just going to follow up on that, and I think there are 3 sectors that I felt we could really make a big difference, either through SYNC and other organizations. Some of them are going to hopefully pan out very quickly, and some of them are going to be like more on the medium term. The first one is education. I feel education is the biggest equalizer. When you talk to the professors and dean of universities, some of them taught me like 20 years ago, and I'm meeting them, and hats off, like we stand on the shoulder of giants. These people stayed there, they battled through everything. But they're overworked, they're underpaid, and they have a life also to go actually and feed their families. So the universities need a lot of love, a lot of attention to level up the level of education and help the community there, like either through summer school, through boot camps, or some of us going back and teaching a course, teaching seminars. Like, I think the students are super hungry, the professors are overtired, a lot of people left the country. So there's a lot of work that has to happen from an education sector. And I think this is really something we can bring the skills within 1 to 2 years. Like, this is not something that's gonna take a very, very long time. You can get a bachelor degree in 4 years. Maybe we just focus on certain courses and go help there. The second one is really the infrastructure. I think, yes, there are solutions here, but they are really band-aids. Like, if you think about it, the country has 1.5 gigawatt of electricity. Like, you cannot even run a data center with 1.5 gigawatt of electricity. If you want to really build an industry, it's going to take some non-traditional thinking. Like, you cannot just go on a plan about, okay, I'm going to set up like an electricity, I'm going to set up the pipes, I'm going to set up the lines here. That's going to take like 5 years. We really needed to come up with startup mentalities and like being scrappy, maybe distributed networks to figure out how can we bootstrap so many areas and have enough power for them to think, because you really cannot predict what the second order or third order of innovation that's going to come out from having good infrastructure. The third aspect that I think will be important for SYNC and for this room to play a role at is trying to nudge the mentality. Like, one of the things I noticed there talking to a lot of people is like, they're really excited, they really want to do something, but there's like, yeah, I'm going to apply for this grant from the EU. I'm going to work with this embassy to get some funding to start something. And guess what? Aid doesn't build an industry. Aid is like, there's always so many strings attached with aid, and at the first political juncture, they're gonna withdraw the aid. This is not how you sustain an economy. So there is some mental model that we could help bring from Silicon Valley, where like, we need to build industries. We really need to build a tech industry that's not just working on aid or just contracting with the government. You're building a product, you're raising cash, and actually you're trying to become cash flow positive with your business. And this is the mentality that I think a lot of people in this room can help bring.
Well, pretty much everything was mentioned before me. But maybe I will give one perspective. Ideally, we want people to, after graduating, not to think that they want to leave the country, that they want to stay because there's opportunities for them. And maybe we want people outside to also come back. And if we have this cycle, it's fine for people inside to go outside to get some additional education and come back, because they know that the country is there for them and they can do wonders. My colleagues in Aleppo University pretty much all left. Nobody stayed. I mean, that was back then. Only 2 in Syria from my group. I hope that culture changes, and I hope this SYNC, what we do here, make that happen. I mean, there are pretty much everything mentioned here would help that to make it happen, but that's one point that I would like to mention.
Thank you for your amazing perspectives. One of the things that shocked me with this trip was one of our colleagues who is not with us, so a big shout out to Jude Roja. He's in London. But at one point, he asked the audience, we keep saying the term Silicon Valley. How many of you know what Silicon Valley is? Very few people raised their hands. So here we are, taking and importing all of this wonderful things about the valley, and yet they knew nothing about it. And so we had to do a little bit of even just explaining what Silicon Valley is. And when we talk about it, we don't talk about it as a geography so much as a mindset. So can you enlighten us a little bit on how we can help shape that innovation mindset within the younger generation that is so hungry to excel in tech?
I think there's already a lot of good things, I think, in Syria that resemble Silicon Valley mindset. resourcefulness, like we were saying, right? Like I think a lot of the students in Syria operate in a very constrained environment, so they figure things out, right? I think that's like one of the things in Silicon Valley, right? Like there's always this thing where like we'll figure it out, right? Like it may not be pretty, it may not be perfect, but we'll figure it out. And I think you see that in Syria. For example, I was talking in the conference to some of the professionals working on fine-tuning large models, right? There's sanctions. They figured out VPN. It's costly. They figured out a way to open so many accounts, like use the freebie quota and then open up a new freebie quota. And, you know, they got stuff done, right? So I think that's really good, right? There's already the essence is there. But I think what is missing, like we were saying, is that like well-lit path to success, right? Here it's more or less people know if they want to succeed, you know, like where they need to go, how they can start, they have a network. I think that's lacking in Syria. For example, I met so many impressive people there, but like one was entrepreneur. He had started companies in Syria and he's doing really well and he wanted to get into AI. And then maybe like half an hour later, I was talking to somebody who's working in AI and is doing really interesting stuff, right? Like he had set up DeepSeek and got it to run, and he was like trying all these things with it, and he had all these ideas, and he was like, I don't know how to start a business, right? I'm like, oh, I know this guy, right? Like, so I think that having that ecosystem or that like well-lit path to success is important there. But a lot of the essence, I feel like it's already there.
When I think of like Silicon Valley, like I think of like how you turn problems and obstacles into opportunities and solutions. And I think if you lived in Syria for the last 12, 15 years, it's all obstacles. Starts with getting bread in the morning, figuring out gas, electricity. There's all these things, mukhabarat, this further, that further. Like there's so many things you have to overcome. So I think people's mindset is already like working and problem solving all day long, because to go about your day, like you have to problem solve everything. So I think people are operating with that mindset, literally with everything. We became really good at it. But I think what's probably missing is some of the soft skills, professionalism. I think there's a few things that are not too difficult to probably coach and train for. I was a little disappointed that people are not as on LinkedIn as you would want them to be. I think it was you, Miasa, that mentioned this, like maybe after the first half days, like, hey, don't just ask for my phone number, ask me for my LinkedIn. Let's talk on LinkedIn. And only a few hours later, for every person that you ran into, they're like, hey, what's your LinkedIn? So they were scanning your QR code on WhatsApp, so they were able to quickly pick it up. Somebody talked about the elevator pitch, they mentioned it, they immediately jumped for it. So I think these guys are really eager. They're really eager, they're really ready to go. So I think the mindset is there because of what happened, but we're gonna need to work on some of the soft skills, and I know Iyad had mentioned this, Iyad Yaqub, and I think it's not something that we're overlooking. I think it's something that we have to know, like, it needs to be worked on. I think if you're going to hire somebody today in any remote place that has a different culture, if you go to, for those that do like outsourcing in India, you go there knowing that the culture is different. You have to work with it. I think if anyone is going to work with tech in Syria, just walk in knowing that the culture is a little different, the working environment's a little different. So you just plan for them, and I don't think there'll be a problem.
Yeah, I think people there are really scrappy with the tools that they have, and they have done amazing work with what they were given. The hand they were dealt is rough, but they played it well. I think a lot of the ingredients exist there. I think we talk about entrepreneurship and like starting something new. I think I was joking with people and told them, like, actually, it's not that too often in Syria. Like, a lot of young people who grow up, like, their parents tell them, okay, you need to find a shop and start a new business. What kind of business? I don't know. Figure it out. Let's go and find a new business. And I joked with Basil back in the room that this was the advice given to him at some point. It's like, why are you working in big companies? Start something. I guess eventually he did. But they have a lot of this mentality. It's like, okay, let's figure something out. Let's do it. They're really scrappy. But how do you put all these ingredients together? I think even from a soft skills perspective, like, I don't know how many of you dealt with like sellers, bayayin bisham, like they have some of the best soft skills, like, and they teach it to their kids. Like, it exists, it's amazing. I think just putting all these things together, like something like plug and play, like where you just go, these people who want to start companies together, they're in the same room, being scrappy. I think Noor over there like led a tour to one of the incubators, and one of the people on the tour, they told us like, that incubator is like way too fancy. Like it needs to be a little bit more scrappy, just like a door, that's a table, work together, don't even need a roof, like just whatever is gonna cover it, internet, enough electricity, and get things done very quickly. So the ingredients is there, but how do we put all these ingredients together and guide it towards a tech industry is, I think this is where it's gonna take some effort and some leadership to do that.
I agree with this question, actually. The way people over there see Silicon Valley as something very fancy, like what Mariam just mentioned, something that you actually need to follow strict tools and way of building software. And maybe they don't know that maybe in Amazon, my friend here in Amazon, do you guys still build your desks in Amazon? I mean, we basically here build desks just for employees to do things. We have a saying in Facebook that basically move fast and break things. Literally, to have that mentality in Syria, you just need to do things. You can do it on a whiteboard, you can do it in a spreadsheet. Why do you need tools? You necessarily have everything under you to operate in a Silicon Valley mentality. And this thing, I don't think they get it, because literally, I talked with about 3 or 4 different incubator that teaches incubation in Syria. I did not dig into too much in details on what they do, but people over there think that education, they need to study everything. They need to have all these certificates, because this is basically for them a way out for the country to have these certificates. But in fact, you don't need any of that. You just need to figure out an idea, have a small team, and do things. And I think that's basically the Silicon Valley mentality that I don't think they know about.
We're gonna pause right here and take questions from the audience. I have no questions?
Can we run 2 videos before the Q&A?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Why don't we do it in Damascus? And it seems that the organizers were already thinking the same way. And when I've heard that it's actually going to happen in Damascus, I was, okay, clear my calendar. This is the only thing I'm gonna do. Let me see how can I help, how can I assist, how can I be part of this movement. And this is how we see SYNC. It's much more than a conference, it's a movement.
SYNC is focusing on IT and the infrastructure at this point, and this is where the majority of the young people in Syria are headed for. This is where we feel we can have the most impact.
I look at SYNC and I just see it as a vehicle for a group of people, mainly technologists around the world and in Silicon Valley, who will be able to come out and will be able to express that feeling towards a country that they grew at, their parents are at, their farms were there, or their stores, or what have you. But for after half a century of oppression, we suddenly are able now to reclaim that country, and we are also able to reclaim that identity.
SYNC actually was beyond the conference already. We did a lot of work, a lot of groundwork. We did a baseline assessment to understand what's the culture in tech and what are the needs from the average layman to the students, to the teachers, to professors, to people in tech.
Today, arriving at SYNC, just unparalleled level of energy and excitement, right? This ecosystem is really ripe. It's really, really, really exciting to see the buddingness and the acceleration rates that I expect is gonna come out of here.
شباب أنا شفت فيهم طاقة، يعني كأنه عم تتفجر الطاقة وتطلع منهم، بس وعم يحكي كل واحد عم يطرح شو أو أسئلة. بدهم ناس تعطيهم guidance، إرشادات واحد أو طرق معينة بالتفكير.
You don't know how you connect. It's someone connects you with the other one, and the other one connects you with the other one. And I believe that all Syrians that left the country, they felt that there is a need and there is kind of a sense of urgency, how to support each other while we are like all over the world, everywhere.
We do know that we have around 14 million people as refugees worldwide. The return of these people is not an easy thing with the sanctions in place. For example, if someone who has a startup or a company abroad and want to move their business inside, they cannot do that in terms of wiring their money or transferring their funds into Syria or transferring their own business platforms into Syria.
We had to navigate a very challenging regulatory environment because of the sanctions. We're not allowed to invest, and we do not invest in startups in Syria.
Be proud. Be proud of who you are and what you've done. Show it off. Because when the event happens in Silicon Valley, it's not about just Syrians. It's about subject matter experts in multiple domains at that event. We want to lure them. We want to attract them. We want them to see that the opportunity is truly in Syria.
I'm looking forward to see SYNC become the new standard for Syrians in diaspora, in technology, entrepreneurship, and investment to connect together and to be a global community where these people can even have their own meetups, they can run their businesses, they can connect, and that sets the culture of collaboration and connect with people between those cities and also back in Syria. I'm looking forward to see that happening.
So amazing, so amazing. We feel inspired and enlivened that we have come into a place where nothing is going to stop us now. We are, whatever it was, palaces or anything else, we're going to create our own destiny and our own future together.
Here comes the Syrians, more and more of them. Amazing technologists, big smile on their face, unbelievable amount of energy. They want to get things done.
هلا يمكن الناس شوي تستغرب انه البنت ممكن يكون عندها هيك اهتمامات. Now I'm working in a telecom company as a radio frequency engineering. Actually, I'm in the planning division. We are responsible for the sites and coverage. إذا نعمل site planning تمام، فأول شيء بنطلع عليه هو مثلاً المنطقة الجغرافية اللي نحن فيها. بنشوف مثلاً التعداد السكاني الموجود بهي المنطقة. اخترت هذا المجال لأنه أنا بحب الشغل الحركي. يعني بميل للشغل اللي بقدر إني أنا أطلع وفوت فيه، أعمل كونتاكت مع أشخاص، حتى أشوف عالم أكتر وأتواصل وأتعرف على عالم أكتر. My passion. Actually, I'm a ballerina. أنا برقص باليه من أنا وعمري تقريباً 7 سنين. ساعدتني كتير بتكوين شخصيتي فينا نقول. هلا بحكم إنه نحن بالبيت كلياتنا بنات، وبحكم إنه البابا صار له تقريباً 4 سنين متوفي، ففي كتير أمور أنا مستلمتها. فقدان شيء صعب كتير، وخصوصي إنه لما يكون فجأة.
If you want to send a message to people in Silicon Valley, what would you say?
يلي عم بيمر بمصاعب هي أكيد بتكون كتير صعبة، وبيكون الشخص حاسس إنه خلص هي نهاية العالم إذا مرق بتحدي معين، بس لازم ما نفقد الأمل، لأنه هن يلي بيضلوا محفزيننا لقدام.
Okay, so since we saw those great videos, I think we're not going to have any time for questions, but the panelists are ready to answer any questions you have. We are going to take a quick, they gave us 5 minutes back. All right. I did want to say one thing. Amr, are you here? Just as your name came up during our prep for this session, and people want to model what you've been able to do and how you've been able to do it. You are really looked at as a a genius with what you've done. I know we're going to hear from you, but I wanted to give you that big shout out from everyone who believe in everything that you're doing, and we're going to look to you and how you've built a successful incubation slash expanding of companies. So I just wanted to let you know that. Questions? Please, a quick question and no comments. So
Okay.
a question, please.
Yeah, I might have comments about this later individually, but I was wondering, you know, resourcefulness was touched upon a lot. I'm wondering how much free and open source technology factors into that, whether it's on the Syrian side. I know Syrians are very much into that from a long time ago, but how much is it a part of the strategy for SYNC? And I'm wondering if the government itself has any sort of strategy for that. I've heard in Idlib they have some experience with blockchain and things like that, so if anyone
Right.
could comment on that.
So could we have one of you answer it, please? Who would like to take it?
I can take one part of it. I did talk with the company over there and specifically asked them about open source because they had some computer vision stuff and things like that. They did not want to use open source because some of these open sources are really hard to, you need a team to maintain it and be in sync with it and all that. So yeah, that part, that's my experience, but they use open source for tooling, a lot of open source. They use open source for CRM. They do that. I hope they are open to using libraries from open source if they have the expertise. I think they're lacking the expertise to deal with open source 100%. But yeah, 100%. And I don't know if the government had any issues with that. I mean, that's too soon.
Mahmoud?
One thing came up often in my discussions with students or professionals is, as a hiring manager, usually where I'm looking to hire people, I look for familiar things, right? So do I know where they went to school, or do I know where they have worked, right? Because that gives me signals. And one of the things we mentioned to students there is contributing to open source will make them familiar to international companies, right? So if I see a resume and nothing in it is familiar, it's like it's hard for me to make a judgment, right? But if I see that the person had contributed to open source projects, it will tell me something about their skill set and their knowledge. So I think it's an important part of the strategy to build the world-class software engineers in Syria.
Fantastic.
Yeah, thank you. Very, very nice. And I appreciate all of your opinions and what you've shared so far. The question is, obviously there's a lot of demand, which is why everybody's expecting the 25,000 jobs. And obviously there's a lot of interest from Syrians who are looking for jobs. The question is, can you find the right resources? It's not just 25,000 people, it's 25,000 people that could do Silicon Valley types of activities. And how do we bridge that gap if it exists? I think Abdelhamid mentioned that there's a huge gap from a knowledge perspective. How do we bridge it?
Right. I think SYNC and other groups are talking about doing like this sync function that happened like 2 weeks ago was just like similar setup like this where people came, and I think I'd say like 80% of the value was probably in connecting. I think somebody mentioned yesterday there's a hackathon that's happening. It'll be really, really big. I think the next events need to be more about hands-on, working in teams. So like if there were going to be, like if there's going to be an event where maybe like there's 30, 40 teams, I think 30, 40 people from Silicon Valley should be distributed in all these teams. So if we really want to kind of do this exercise, we should make sure that there's hands-on experience. And I think this is one of the feedback that people brought up. So something like that will need to happen. I think one conference is not going to do it. There's going to need to be like multiple, I think, events like this. And I don't think the gap is too big. I think it's just going to require, like kind of more and more events. And I'm really hoping that we don't do all of them in Damascus. I think they need to happen in all these cities. I know people had to like drive 4 hours, 3 hours from different places to attend the one that happened in Damascus. So hopefully there will be those hackathons in all these places.
And SYNC has committed to going back either 1 or 3 times this year specifically to do boot camps and other training. One final question is, sorry.
Thank you so much, guys. The Indian experience, I worked with Accenture. We had over 70,000 employees in India, in Philippines, 30,000. Are we looking at the Indian experience? Because when I was leaving Syria, I was looking for training in MCSA, MCSE. India was cheaper, available. They would give us training for half the price that we can find in Cairo or Beirut 25 years ago. But if we have experienced people in the outsourcing field, are we looking to capitalize on their experience and learn from it?
Great. So we will be looking at what other diasporas do. Anyone want to? Oh, and I'm being signaled. These the posters that Bassel was referring to earlier. This is where you sign up. This isn't a job for SYNC. This is a wajib that is on all of us. Anyone who can hear my voice, this is your obligation. It's a collective obligation. A few of us cannot do it, but all of us, we can do it. And so sign up, let us know where your areas of interest are, what you could do to help. And we're thrilled to be working with all of you and the organizations that we talked about on the ground. Sure.
I just want to touch really quick on the India thing. I think there is so much opportunities for Syria. If there are people that know how to set up the infrastructure, the framework, to get all these companies that have 15 people here and there, like it was mentioned, there's a lot of small companies, is to actually take a lot of those resources and put them in a framework that allow them to actually operate for how India would operate. I think we have a lot of advantages over India. We're only 7 hours ahead of the East Coast. I mean, think about the hours, the additional hours in India, so the overlapping hours is significant. People are really self-driven. Like I can't tell you how self-driven people are because of, I mean, this is a very meaningful job for their family, like I said earlier. So I'm really hoping that if somebody in the room that have worked with outsourcing in India and how the framework would work to make it happen, I think this is probably very, very critical to take it there, because a lot of them don't have that infrastructure. Even those that are working for the Gulf, it's really small operation, very, very small, 15, 20. The largest I've seen like 150, but it was someone who owned the company in Dubai, and it's his office over there. So not like kind of a true outsourcing infrastructure.
And we're about to hear from some incredible NGOs and their visionary leaders right after the break. Rania, Lena, George will be telling us about some incredible initiatives that are running on the ground and that will be launched. With that, I'd like to thank you all, gentlemen, for your time, for your insights.